Today, I'm going to tell you exactly how long my MacBook Air M2 battery lasted. What's happening, Panda Nation? Peter Von Panda here. I have a MacBook Air M2 processor. It's a very good laptop, a 2022 model. And one of the things that I've always loved about the MacBook Airs is that they get all-day battery life, or at least that's what they claim. And so I actually wanted to find out exactly how long that battery lasted. So what I did is I just kept looking at the battery level. As I was working, I was timing stuff out. I actually grabbed the graph inside the laptop that records the battery level throughout the day. So I will show that to you as I'm telling you about my day. So the thing that I wanted to do here was not do any of the tests that I see when people load up a movie or play a game, and it's not necessarily really what they do for work, right? So I have, I think, a pretty typical job. I'm generally on email all day. I am transferring files using a bunch of cloud services like OneDrive and Google Drive and Dropbox. I'm on Teams meetings and conference calls, so I'm using the webcam and the speakers and the microphone, not all day long, but throughout the day on a pretty regular basis. So I think I'm just like most people with the web browsers and the Microsoft Office suite. And I think I'm a good representation of the typical user. So let me tell you about my day. Didn't hold back at all, just used the laptop as I normally would. And what I wanted to say here is that I also left the laptop on full power mode. So even though I was using it off of a charger, I never had the low power mode on. So keep that in mind too. I think that would certainly extend out the life. So the first thing I did was that I just kind of worked all day until my lunch break. So I actually worked 4 hours and 10 minutes. And I noticed at that point, right before I shut the laptop lid closed, didn't turn it off, just closed the lid, that it was down to 67% battery. So I was like, all right, I'm going to get all day out of this because the battery isn't even run down half as much. So that actually translates to about 8% of the battery per hour. So I was pretty happy with that. So what ended up happening is after lunch, I went to some meetings where I didn't take my laptop with me. And so I was actually gone for about 3 hours. So when I came back and opened up the laptop again, I wanted to see what the battery status was because it was in standby, not turned off, and it actually used about 1% of the battery per hour on standby. So I left at 67%, and when I came back, it was 64%. So not too bad. That was pretty good. And then I started working again, and actually when I got done with this body of work, that was 2 hours and 15 minutes later, I noticed that the battery was at 31%. In this case, I noticed that the battery was discharging at a rate of about 14% per hour. Now, this is probably due to me using the webcam and doing online meetings more heavily during this period of time. But as you draw down the battery, maybe it's just using a larger percentage of the power. I don't know. So that actually came out to about 13% of the battery per hour. So now I'm actually getting a little worried. Is this battery going to make it to the end of my workday? All right. So I just kept working, and I worked for another hour, and I noticed that the battery was down to 18%. And this means that it was discharging at about 13% an hour, which is right what I saw, after my lunch break, right? So when the battery got down to 17%, the Google Chrome notification came on that said, Google Chrome Energy Saver mode turned on. So I always have browsers open. Like I said, I'm transferring files and downloading files from the cloud and Google Drive a lot. And so whatever Google does to try to save power, it does. And I didn't do anything with that. It automatically came on its own. It didn't seem to affect anything. I didn't notice that, browsing the web was slow or anything. So it just must kind of interrupt background services or something. I'm not sure. All right. So I worked for another 30 minutes and I noticed that the power was down now to 11%. And when it reached 10%, I got a low battery warning from macOS. So it actually tells you that the battery is low and that you should probably plug it in. So obviously I am a risk taker and I love living on the edge. So plugging it in was a no-go. Didn't do it. Worked another 40 minutes doing all the same work that I would normally do. And the battery was now down to 3%. So over the course of the day, and even though the course of the day was about 11 and a half hours overall, there was about a 3-hour period where the laptop was in standby mode. And so I really got 8.5 usable hours, full working hours, no compromises, video conferencing, downloading, uploading, watching videos, doing everything that I would normally do. So I was pretty happy with that. 8.5 hours. That really does mean that you're getting all day use out of this thing for your average worker. So what that also means is that it's going to be kind of just at the edge of the all-day work threshold. So if you are actually working on your computer longer than that, you're probably going to want to plug that in, because when I got down to 3%, that would be the place where I would start to freak out and look for that power cord, because I wouldn't want the computer shutting off on me and losing work. But 8.5 hours of actual usable, no compromise work, I think is pretty awesome, because I think that's what we're looking for. We just want to turn on the computer and not have to worry about finding a power cord throughout the day. So I am really happy with the MacBook Air M2 battery life. It definitely works for me. If you want to pick one up, I'll put a link to it in the description below. Peter Von Panda, out.
We can discover more and explore so much deeper.